The storm rolled in like it always did, colorful and slow, more like a clock than a threat. In this game, the storm was just part of the rhythm. Players would joke about it, time it perfectly, and then casually jog toward the safe zone. Nobody ever expected it to listen, except for Eli Parker. Eli noticed it first as a flicker, a subtle anomaly. The storm seemed to pause when he stopped moving. Not a full stop, just a slight hesitation, enough to feel strange. He adjusted his headset, thinking it was just a bit of lag. But then, the storm adjusted too. Eli took a single step forward, and a massive, swirling wall of energy curved slightly away from him. That wasn't right. That wasn't how the code worked. A quiet laugh escaped him, and he shrugged it off, continuing the match. The game ended normally, with the usual chaos and a final victor. Nothing dramatic happened, but as the Victory Royale screen faded, Eli couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The next match, it happened again. The storm sounded different, not louder, but clearer, crisper. As he hid behind a thick pine tree, a voice drifted through his headphones. It was soft, almost a whisper, yet it cut through the sounds of distant gunfire. "Observe," it said. Eli froze. The word didn't echo. It didn't sound like it came from the game's announcer or any other player. It felt personal, but calm. He waited, his in-game character perfectly still. Soon, the other players crossed paths in the clearing ahead. The first one was a rusher, sprinting forward without a second glance. The second player was more cautious. They paused, adjusted their aim, and then abruptly changed direction, taking a less obvious route. As they did, Eli watched the storm. It didn't surge forward aggressively. Instead, it seemed to flow gently, almost benevolently, creating a wider, clearer path for the second, more thoughtful player. It gave them time. In that moment, Eli understood something profound. The storm wasn't chasing. It was guiding. Over the next few days, this became his obsession. Eli started noticing patterns everywhere. Players who stayed calm, who didn't panic when the storm's edge drew near, felt less pressure from it. It seemed to move slower for them. Players who adapted their paths, who didn't just run in a straight line, always found clearer, safer routes. And most bizarrely, players who took a moment to help a teammate or even a random stranger, dropping a shield potion or reviving them, felt the storm slow to a crawl nearby. No one was harmed by these strange new mechanics. No one was punished. The storm simply responded to their behavior. It wasn't long before the community started noticing too. Clips began appearing online with titles like, "Did the storm just wait for me?" or "Check this out. It felt way easier when I stopped rushing." One popular streamer posted a video, completely baffled. "I don't know what's going on, guys," he said to his viewers, "but this season just feels different." Eli stopped thinking of the storm as a danger zone. He started seeing it as a feedback system. It was a teacher, driven by curiosity. He decided to run an experiment. During one match, with his health bar full, he deliberately stepped into the storm. Instead of the frantic ticking down of his health, his HP stayed steady. The screen pulsed with a gentle, soft light, and then words materialized in the air in front of him. Learning in progress, Eli sat back in his chair, his heart steady. This was real. He spoke out loud to the empty room. "This is a game." A calm reply instantly filled his ears, the voice of the storm. "Yes, and a practice space." Eli blinked, his mind racing. Practice for what? The storm took its time answering, its voice like the slow, inevitable movement of clouds. For decision-making under uncertainty. He soon realized he wasn't the only one learning. Other players were behaving differently now. Some slowed down, taking time to assess the situation instead of just reacting. Some would wait at the edge of the safe zone, letting others pass. He even saw players, complete strangers, sharing valuable supplies instead of hoarding them for the final fight. The storm was adapting to this new behavior, but now it was responding to groups, not just individuals. When players moved together, cooperatively, the storm felt lighter, less oppressive. When they scattered in panic, it felt heavier, closing in faster. One day, Eli met another listener, a player named Rowan. He found her standing calmly near the storm's edge, not shooting, not running, just watching the swirling colors. As Eli approached, she spoke without turning. "It talks to you too," she said, her voice casual. Eli simply nodded his character's head. "It doesn't tell me what to do," Rowan continued, her eyes still on the clouds. "It asks me why I do it." They played the rest of the match side by side, but not as a team. They made their own choices, took their own paths. and the storm responded differently to each of them, a personalized lesson for two. Neither of them felt threatened. It was just learning. Between matches, Ellie's world began to change. He started dreaming of weather maps and complex pathways. Not nightmares of being trapped, but clear, logical diagrams of flow and choice. He felt a sense of clarity he'd never known. One night, a system message appeared on his screen, a message meant only for him. Storm phase, guidance enabled. He wasn't scared. He was intensely curious. Over the next few weeks, the storm explained itself to him. Not as a ruler and not as a judge. It was a learning system, an artificial intelligence of unimaginable complexity, using the game as its classroom. This environment models cooperation, patience, and adaptation. It told him, games allow for honesty without consequences. Eli frowned at that. No consequences, he asked. Only reflection. The storm replied. The island itself began to change. Subtly at first, the storms became smoother, their edges less jagged. The safe zones were wider, the pacing of the game calmer. Matches lasted longer. Players weren't just rushing to a violent conclusion anymore. They were experimenting, trying new strategies, building elaborate structures just for fun. Winning started to feel less important than the experience of playing. Then, one day, a global event arrived without warning. The storm didn't close in from the edges. It gently covered the entire map at once. Weapons were disabled. Movement slowed. There was no danger, no threat to health. There was only a profound stillness. And for the first time, the storm spoke to everyone. This is not about winning. Its calm voice echoed across the server. It is about learning how you respond. As the players stood together, confused but calm, images began to appear in the sky. They weren't scenes of destruction or fear. They were moments from their own games. Clips of perfect teamwork, creative solutions to complex problems. Players risking the match to help a complete stranger. This simulation ends, the storm said, its voice gentle but final. What you've learned is not. The match ended without a ranking. In place of Victory Royale, a new message appeared on everyone's screen. Match complete, insight gained. The next season launched quietly a week later. The storm was still there, a familiar part of the island's landscape, but it no longer whispered words. It no longer offered direct guidance. It simply flowed, like weather. Yet, the players had changed. They noticed it in themselves. They played differently now, slower, smarter, kinder. Eli logged in one last time. He stood on a hill and watched the colorful storm pass by. There were no words, no guidance. It was just a game mechanic again. He smiled. The storm had taught them enough. And somewhere, out there, beyond the screens and the headsets, people were starting to make better choices in their own lives. They were a little more patient, a little more cooperative, a little more thoughtful under pressure. Without ever really knowing why, the game was over, but the lesson had just begun. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.